everyone, it's Katie. I'm back. Um, I had a little technical difficulty yesterday, so the video kind of shut off. But today I wanted to talk about, jobs that I thought existed when I was younger and then, jobs that I found out actually exist in this world and kind of how I found those jobs and then like what that has done in my life, and just kind of talk about uh those things. So, um when I was a kid, the jobs that existed out there were, or at least what I thought, growing up, especially in like that grade school era, was, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it's like teacher, doctor, lawyer, uh secretary. And I really like that's it. And I know it's kind of because like my friend, what my parents did and what my friends' parents did, like my parents were in banking and insurance. I had friends who were doctors and lawyers. Like those were just kind of like the only jobs I really knew of because that's kind of like the only jobs you're really seeing. And also what my parents or what my teachers were kind of telling us, what we could do. And nobody really talked about like alternative jobs like yachting, scuba diving, I don't know, ski instructing. Um, and of course, back then, things like blogging didn't exist, like internet didn't exist when I was young. And so, it felt like the field of jobs was pretty small. It was limited. And what I wanted to talk about first was like what jobs I thought were that I got to choose from a young age, like when I was a kid. So when I was growing up, again, this is like before internet. So internet didn't really take off until, I mean, we had internet, but gosh, I don't know if I had a smartphone until like after college. So like keep all this in mind. So when I was growing up, and in school, it was like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And usually it was like doctor, lawyer, teacher, secretary, like I said. And I remember like my parents being like, you can be whatever you want to be. But there were no examples. Those were the only examples they were giving us was those like four or five things. And so um all I knew and probably like a core belief that has changed over time is that, success was measured by money. So the more money you make, the more successful you are, like the better at life you'll be. And so money being the ultimate motivator, I always wanted to be the doctor or the lawyer because those were the two jobs I knew like made more money. But of course, like being a lawyer, like I didn't even know what a lawyer was when I was growing up. And then doctors sort of appealed to me, like taking care of people, helping people, that was always something I thought would be fun. Maybe not fun, that's the wrong word. Like just a good job. And then in addition to making a lot of money, like, and this kind of happened a little later when I was like taking jobs in college was, well, make sure, it pays health benefits, make sure you have a retirement account, make sure you invest early. Like you got to start investing in retirement like right away. So those were kind of like the measures of success, the core beliefs as a kid. And I just remember, yeah, like I didn't want to be a teacher because teachers didn't make that much money, or at least that's, my parents would tell me that, well, teachers don't make that much money, so it was kind of like, okay, I guess I'll be a doctor. And then I remember this one time when I was probably like 7 or 8 years old. I don't know if there was an election happening, but um we had like the newspaper there and they were interviewing people, and I think they interviewed me and said like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, I want to be the first female president. And it's like, I have no idea what that job is or what it entails, and but it was just a thing, like, I'm sure our teachers were talking about how all presidents had been male up until this point. So I'm like, I'm gonna be the first female president. So anyway, definitely. So obviously, I have no idea like what it even means to work in that field. So anyway, as I got older, like in high school, college, I was actually working as a not a dive, a swim instructor and a lifeguard. And it was kind of like my mom basically made me get a job. I think because A, to fill my time, and B, I was also in a new city. So we moved about 2 hours away. So I lived in a new city in Montana, and I wasn't doing any sports or anything, so I think it was a way for me to just fill my time and then meet people. So those were kind of my first two jobs. And so it's water, which is good. And then when I got into college, it was really interesting because now your first couple years in college, they're like, you're taking all the basic courses. So English, math, blah, 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 blah. Well, as you progress in college, they want to know, like, what do you want to be? Because they need to funnel you into like what courses you're going to take. And I just had no idea. I'm like, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. Like, I didn't even, it's like I couldn't think past, 2 months from now, let alone like 10 years from now. So I, uh, I remember one of my like core classes in probably my first or second semester was anthropology, and I loved it. I loved the teachers. I just kind of loved like the vibe of it. And so I ended up graduating with forensic anthropology. And I totally thought I was going to have a career as like a criminal investigator or like a crime scene technician. And of course, at that time in my college career, that was when it was kind of just getting started. It was getting popular because there was like a TV show. And it's funny because people always thought I watched that TV show and that's why I wanted to be in that field. But it isn't that. It's like when I started anthropology, I liked anthropology in general. And then when they had like subgroups you could do, like archaeology, cultural anthropology, I wanted to major in forensics. So yes, I knew about like the crime scene movies that were happening, but it was more just I was kind of drawn in that direction. And so um yeah, I graduate college. I have this forensic anthropology degree. I think I'm going to work in like law enforcement and be a crime scene investigator or like a crime scene technician. And looking back, it's like I should have gone to tech school if I wanted to be a crime scene technician or work in the lab. Like, but I don't feel like I had this like really good mentor or direction. Like, everyone just kept saying, you can be whatever you want to be. You can be whatever you want to be. So there was never like, I don't know. I don't, I know my professors and everyone was trying to like, uh, put me in the right direction, but I just don't even think I knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. And so, um, yeah, when I got out of college, I was working in banking. I was working in a hospital for a while. I was serving tables at night just to make ends meet. And I just, I didn't like it. It felt boring. It felt so normal, but like not fun. And I ended up moving to Wyoming, working in Jackson, which is like a seasonal ski town. And it's at the base of the Tetons. So Teton National Park and Yellowstone National Park are kind of right there. And when I moved there, I didn't know any of this. A friend of mine asked me how life was going. I was like, life? kind of sucks. Like it just, I wasn't getting a job in my field of forensics. I was working, like I said, at a hospital. I was working at night as a server, just like I said, to make ends meet. And so I was not having fun. So she goes, why don't you move to Jackson? Come work for a season in banquets, be like a banquet server, and ski and just like reset. I don't know if that's the right word, but so I did it. I moved down there, found a place to live, worked in banquets, and I remember like halfway through the season, people start asking me, "What are you going to do in the off season? What are you going to do in the off season?" And I'm like, "What is this off season everyone keeps talking about?" I had no idea like what they were talking about. And so finally someone explains to me like, "Well, the hotel's going to close for like a month, 6 weeks." I can't remember how long our hotel closed back then, but I remember at first being like, "Oh shit, like how am I going to make money? How am I going to um pay my rent? How am I going like, oh my God, I was freaking out." And everyone's like, "No, no, calm down. It's going to be fine. Like, this is what we do." And so I started to meet people, I started to make friends, and I started to date a guy, and he was going to Bali for the off season. So I was like, "Yeah, let's go to Bali." So him and I went to Bali. That's where I learned how to scuba dive. And I can't remember how long we were gone, but like the off season and having that time off and getting to travel and do some and learn how to scuba dive like blew my mind. Like, what? Like, you can actually do this? And then got back to Jackson, started working for the summer. Summers are busier than winters, by the way. People, I think that winters are busier, but actually it's summers. So, anyway, super busy summer, worked my butt off, actually saved money. And then another off season came. So we close again before the winter season. And all of a sudden, I get in this rhythm of like seasonal work, seasonal life, and it was great. It was amazing. I never knew seasonal work existed. I never knew you could actually like make a life in seasonal work. And some of those people were have been at those jobs and working there for decades. I ended up working there for a decade. And how I got into yachting is in some of these off seasons, I started moving up in the diving world. I did my advanced course, my rescue course, my dive master course, and then I decided I was going to move to Thailand and I became an instructor. And there's like no money in dive instructing, or at least not when I was doing it. And so uh, I still did the seasonal work. And in the off seasons, I would travel somewhere and like teach scuba diving, take friends somewhere and teach a course, or like just take them fun diving. And so we started to kind of see different places around the world, which was incredible. So this is how I started like traveling more and more and going to different places. And yeah, the first time we did a liveaboard trip, and a liveaboard is you live on board the boat and you dive all week, and you have your meals. We call it eat, sleep, dive, repeat. Like that's all you do. You just dive, eat, sleep, repeat. It's like every day for a week, and it's amazing. Anyway, there was a girl on board who served all our drinks, made us cocktails. She served all our food. And I remember one day just like bing, the light bulb went off. I was like, oh my God, I could work on a boat because I have this whole service industry background now. And I'm a dive instructor. I could work on a boat. I could, like serve tables. I could take people diving. I had this whole mind like blown moment. And so for about the next year, I worked on transitioning into yachting. And that's a whole other beast. And we will talk about that in the next episode. But what I wanted to really talk about is just I never knew these jobs existed. I never knew you could live this seasonal lifestyle, and I guess being a teacher, yeah, you work the year and then you have summers off. So they kind of have a little bit of a seasonal lifestyle, but having a dual season, like, a big chunk off in one part of the year and a big chunk off in the other was like amazing. So seasonal work and then yachting can be anywhere from like full-time year round to seasonal to oh, what am I trying to think of? Um, rotation. Rotation sounds awesome. I still haven't done rotational work. And then there's freelance work. And freelance is kind of like contract work. You work the contract and then you're done and then you go and work another contract. So all these jobs, all these transitions, all these movements led me into realizing that, like, going back, success in my small town Montana world was the more money you make and having health benefits and having retirement is your measure of success. And as I got older and started working all these other jobs and living in different places, I realized, like, that wasn't the measure of success for me. It didn't feel right. My measure of success was like having time off to go places and see things and do things. And yes, it costs money, so you need to find something that like pays enough money for you to, pay for your lifestyle. And also just um like, yes, health insurance is important. Yes, retirement's important. But what I learned about retirement, and this sounds really sad, but it's like not all of us are going to make it to retirement. So, my parents were like, you got to save for retirement, you got to save for retirement. And then as I got older and people, around, not people around me, but hearing of someone passing away, like, oh, they didn't get to retirement. They passed away before retirement. Or they retired and then passed away. And it's like they never got a chance to enjoy that retirement. And so that measure of success in my mind changed because I'm like, well, if you're not gonna make it to retirement, what's the point? What's the point of saving for this one day? One day I'll do this, one day I'll travel. I was like, no, I want to travel now. I want to see the world now. And so slowly but surely, those kind of core beliefs and those measures of success have changed over the years. And um, I'm like, where am I? Where am I? Um, yeah, so I really um have been so blessed to have worked and play in different countries and with different people. And even in Jackson, Wyoming, they have this program where they have a lot of like J1, J2, no, J1 visa students. So they would bring in these students from other countries. And so I got to work with people like from Peru. I got to work with people from China. I got to work with people from, um, oh shoot, I'm gonna mess this up. Where were they from? Anyway, you get the picture, like people from all over. And then all of a sudden, like, not only am I working and or not only am I living this alternate lifestyle because I'm working seasonally, like I'm taking it back a minute to the seasonal work, but now I'm working with people from other countries. Now I'm seeing like what people from other countries measure success in. And it's so different. They're there, they're working, they're not home, they're with a few people they kind of know and they can speak their native language with, and then they have all of us from the US, and they're making friends and we're learning so many things from each other. Like they're learning like stupid uh just the way we say things and our sarcasm and things like that. And then we're learning, how their humor and how they express it and it doesn't always translate. Like the languages, it doesn't always translate. So the joke falls flat or whatever. But yeah, working with people from different countries. And then when I started really traveling like farther afield in like Thailand and stuff, and for example, just being able to be immersed in the culture and the language and their ways of life and how they live and like, you know, Thailand, for example, is a predominantly Buddhist country and it's like their beliefs it's like live in the present moment, like be thankful for what you have now. I'm probably totally botching this, so just, I'm not an expert in Buddhism, so please don't take it that way. But just their way of living and like being grateful for everything they have. And sometimes they don't have very much, I'm meeting people all over the world that, if you compare the things I have, the material things I have compared to the material things they have, two totally different things. And some of them, the least amount of material objects they have, the happier they are. And so just learning from all these different cultures and people and like feeling that life and that love, like that is success, making friends in different countries, just sharing stories and learning from each other, like especially learning from each other because there's so many things I've learned from travel and just being with different people all over the world. We don't think the same. And especially, going back to me coming from Montana, it's like this small town mindset, of like uh graduate school, get a good job, have a family, and then retire. And like, different places around the world, like they kind of have the same setup, but their measures of success are different. They want to have a joyful, happy life. They live in the present moment. I feel like in the US, we're always, planning for the future and not really living in the present. And so I just like working with people from all over the world has taught me so many things. And yeah, I just wanted to come on here and especially talk about these different jobs and seasonal work and yachting and all that stuff is because um, you don't need permission to change your life. You don't need I don't know if permission is the right word. I'm sorry. There's just so much out there, and I have a lot of friends who are like, how did you get here? Or they're kind of envious of like this life that I chose, but that's the key word is I chose it. Every move I made, every job I changed, like I chose this lifestyle and this pattern, and it's wildly different from, what I was taught was like how we should be living. And so if if you want to do something different, if you want to work in a different job, or if you want to live in a different place, like it is possible. And I feel like, my when I was growing up, even in like high school, college, and then after college, I didn't know these jobs existed or these lifestyles existed. And B, like, it didn't feel possible. It was like people who traveled had money. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, I need to make money and then I can travel. And that's not the case. Like you can figure out different ways to travel and make money like I said, with the seasonal stuff, I'd work really hard for a season and then I would travel. And then I'd come back and work really hard for a season and then I'd travel. So there's just so many different options and living in a small town and growing up with um you know with my family and what we, like I said, what we deemed success being, I feel like there's just so much more to that. And and they didn't know that because they grew up in a small town. They grew up with the same the parents working 9 to 5 and taking vacation once a year and saving for retirement. So I feel like that's what they learned and that's what I learned. And so unlearning that has been a whole eye-opening experience. Um, so I know I kind of touched on several different jobs and things like that. And I know most of my friends always ask me about yachting and like how I went from, coming from Montana, which is a landlocked state, to yachting. And so I'm going to save that for the next one. Thank you for joining me, and we'll talk soon.